Hello and welcome to Yesterday's Airlines once again for another exclusive look at a sample model from one of the manufacturers of die-cast airliners. In this case, it's NG Models again, and it is not 400 scale, it is another 200 scale mold, and as you can see, it is for the Boeing 737-600. Now, NG have been a really good company to work with, and they've been producing some really spectacularly nice molds. And this one, as is clear from the image here, already looks pretty special. It's also a little unusual for an NG sample in that it comes fully printed with the window line and all of the other details. And also, I think for the first time ever, this sample has got aerials attached. So it's a long way down the production line. Presumably that means that it will be out sooner than some of the samples in the past, which will be interesting to see. The 737-600, it's a mold which is not particularly well used in 200 scale, so there's definitely a gap there for it. But presumably this is just going to be the first of a series of next generation 737s in 200 scale that NG produce. I don't have any information about that, but it'll be interesting to see whether that's the case or not. Anyway, in this video we're going to take a closer look at this sample here and give it the once over, see what I think, and take a more detailed look. But before we do that, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I get sent these kind of sample models quite regularly, not just from NG Models, but also from companies like Aviation 400 as well. Basically, the more enlightened brands. And so I get lots of this stuff before anyone else does get to take a look at it. I also do a lot of work checking out releases and looking at what's being made, and obviously doing comparisons of the molds and looking at the history of the airlines that the models represent. So there's a lot of good content, and I can be followed here obviously on YouTube, Instagram at YesterdayAirlines, on Facebook at YesterdayAirlines, and of course yesterdaysairlines.com, where I've already published a written review of this lovely 737-600 sample mold. So if you want more information and you want more photos, then get over to yesterdaysairlines.com and check out that review. It is jam-packed full of information. But now let's get on and take a closer look at this 737-600. So here she is going around the turntable. You can see that there's a lot of really fine detailing on this model. I've obviously previously had the sample for the 400 scale 737-600, and that's a delightful model, but you can really see the extra level of detail that you can get when you scale up to 200 scale, and there's a lot of really nice features on this model. So just let it go around a couple of times so you can get an overall look, and then we'll take her off and get in a bit closer. So she's off the turntable, and let's take a look at the model really close up here. I have to say that there's very little that I can possibly say to criticize this sample. The whole mold is looking great, and if you look at things like this nose section, it's nigh on perfect. The printing also looks really nice, and I think the window line, the cockpit windows, and the other details here look really good. From the front, you can see that the main undercarriage gear doors are in the right place. It's all looking rather good. You've got solid core engines, not hollow core engines, but they look really nicely detailed. Decent flat underside to the engines as well. Liking the engine pylons here. They hang the engines very nicely, and the exhaust is also looking good. So generally the engines all look good. And I have to say that when I did look at pictures of the Gemini 737-600 in 200 scale, I was less happy with the way they've got the engines looking, especially the underside portion. I think it's looking better here on this mold. Moving up to the wings, can't see any real issues there either. Really nice form. And as you can see, it's got that nice crease in the fuselage either side of the fairing there. And moving to the rear, some really nice detailing here. One of the sort of extra features you can get on the bigger mould is things like this little, which must be a landing light here on the end of the tail cone. We've got the APU there, and the nozzle and the exhaust looking very nice. And the stabilizers, good free rudder along the bottom. Really very good. As I said, this model comes with aerials, and it has 5. It's got these 2 across the top, and on the underside it's also got 2. And it's got the other one at the front there as well. So it looks like I've accidentally flattened that aerial. It was up better before. The aerials themselves look fine. I think that the only criticism I make is that this aerial here at the rear should be squarer, not as tapered, but otherwise I think the aerials are looking nice. No big issues there. So overall, I think this is a really nicely formed 737. Can't see any real other criticisms other than that aerial. If we flip her over and have a look underneath, got some really strong detailing here. Very, very nice. And some really nice printing too, actually. Obviously, being 200 scale, the undercarriage is removable on here. It's simply magnetic, as you'd imagine. So simply take it out and you can see how it looks. And the magnet underneath. And also for the main gear, which just pulls out with a magnet underneath. We've got the other undercarriage to slot in, easy as that. So that's looking very nice. And at the front, similar. So gear up, again, looking really good underneath. Now this sample didn't come with a stand. Once again, I'm using the stand from another 200 scale model, but it fits on there just about, a little bit loose. And the aircraft, I think, looks great on the stand. So just return her to the turntable. Overall, I think that this is clearly a really, really nice model sample. It's going to make an excellent 737-600. I'd be interested to know what 200 scale collectors think about there being another Series 600 in the scale. There are 2 existing molds, one from Herpa and a much more recent one from geminijets. But they've only garnered 3 models in the entirety of 200 scale, so they're not really providing much competition. And I have to say that even though the Gemini version is quite new, it doesn't look as good as this in terms of the undercarriage or the engines or the nose form, and just generally not as sharp, which I guess isn't a dramatic surprise. So I don't think there's a huge amount of competition for 737-600s in 200 scale. I don't think Gemini are going to be producing large numbers. NG have already made 12 or so in 400 scale. They've made a variety of airlines. They've made a couple of WestJets. They've made a couple of Air Europas. They've made a couple of Milevs. They've made a couple of Fly Globe spans, as well as a couple of singletons as well. Like, is it Aeroflyer, the Canadian airline that started flying them? So it would really not be a surprise at all to see a good chunk of those releases replicated in 200 scale. Obviously, I'd imagine you'll also get Air China and China Southwest as well. So there's a decent breadth of releases, which I am pretty sure we'll be seeing. Obviously, the 736 didn't really make much of a splash, or any splash indeed, in the United States, so I can understand that US collectors probably won't be overly fussed by this. But I think it is a gateway to further next generation molds. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see a 73G or an 800. And although those are molds which seem very well represented in 200 scale, I guess NG are looking at making what sells. Certainly this is an interesting comparison with their 757s and does illustrate that NG are really thinking of expanding into the larger scale in quite a big way. So I think that's quite interesting and exciting for 200 scale collectors. It'll be interesting to see if NG can replicate their success in 400 scale in the larger scale. And frankly, when you've got mold samples of this sort of quality, I just don't see why they can't do that. So looking really good overall. Not a model for me, but a model I think which, as I say, opens up opportunities for NG in 200 scale and is another step really towards them really becoming a player in the bigger scale. So that's it for this quick look at this lovely little 737-600. Keep an eye out for further sample reviews coming in the next few months. Keep an eye out for more of the same sort of material looking at aviation history at Yes to Airlines, and I hope you enjoy the videos and channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.